you can catch up. Hi, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm going to be hosted today on Archery Talk 101 with a special guest, Nick. He's going to be on the show with us today. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about why and how you got started in archery.
Well, it started when I was a kid. Thankfully I had a family that grew up hunting and had a passion for the outdoors. So my dad, he had a bow in my hand from the age of about 3-4 years old, shooting a long bow to upgrading to a recurve. Got my first compound when I was 12 years old and just absolutely loved it. I mean, he started out putting a balloon out on a target, seeing if he could hit it, and it was a lot of fun. Then I developed a passion for whitetail hunting. And so started going deer hunting all the time. And then in my teenage years, I had a guy that my dad worked with. He shot leagues. And that particular year, he didn't have somebody to partner with. And I asked, would you want to shoot archery leagues with me? 3D archery. I'm like, man, that sounds awesome. That's when I found out I wasn't as good a shot as I thought, because these guys were awesome. And I had to learn how to improve my skills.
Yeah.
And so they changed my bow setups. They changed releases I was using, stabilizers. And ultimately, Jesse and Ginger Moorhead showed up in the picture when I was about 16 years old. And world famous archers. I was blessed. They took me under their wing and started training me and made me a better shot than I ever thought I could be. And that kind of started my path to my pro archery career. So,
yeah, interesting journey. I started my kids out, when they was in the, 3 to 5 year old range, shooting a little compound bow, only 5 pounds, but they could throw back, and I had 2 of them, and all of my kids went through those, and then of course those, by the time your kids go through those, they're pretty much just throwaway, because they don't work too much anymore. But yeah, you start them out there and just get going with archery. And I know me, I started back in the 60s, before there was compound bows.
Yeah, that
And,
was
yeah, you had either recurve or longbow and wood or fiberglass. That was it.
Yep, exactly. So you remember when the old bear whitetail 2s and everything came out in the first compounds? And
oh yeah, I actually shot one of those. My brother bought one of those. The first one I seen was a compound, and the first one I shot was his bear whitetail 2.
yeah, that's what my dad, that was his first one. And I look at the equipment we used to have back then to what we have now, and archery has came a long way. It's amazing, today's bows, the speeds they get, the forgiveness, the smoothness of them. But yeah, that bug bit me pretty good when I was a kid, though, and absolutely love it. So I travel the circuit. I go to all the ASA and IBO events. I'm the pastor for ASA, so I host sunrise services at all the events, and then I compete professionally for Matthews at them all. So just love shooting my bow. Unfortunately, this year hasn't started off how I planned on, because I had a valve that went bad in my heart. And so you can see this little device I got on my chest right now. Unfortunately, I had open heart surgery a week and a half ago, where they had to fix an aneurysm and put in a mechanical valve. So put a little damper on my shooting for the first few months of this year, but I will be back. I will be at the World Championships and the ASA Classic, and finish the year as strong as I can. So
Yeah, with being that close out of surgery, really appreciate you coming on the show.
No problem.
After surgery, it's a testament to your dedication to archery, and we all appreciate that.
Yeah, the surgeon, I was up walking in ICU 12 hours after surgery. And then the next day I was in the heart wing room, and he came to check on me, and I'm walking laps in the hallway. And his mind was blown on how well I was doing. And he goes, now that's what I want to see. He goes, but no shooting a bow for 2 months. And I said, come on, doc. I said, I did build a light poundage bow the day before I went into surgery, just to appease him, so that way I could get back to hopefully shooting sooner. And he goes, well, what's light poundage? Well, to me, 56.5 pounds is light poundage when I'm used to shooting 75.
Oh yeah.
to him, that's still too much. So I got 6.5 weeks to go at the soonest, and I can shoot a bow again, but possibly up to 12 weeks. We've just got to see when this rib cage is fully healed up. So
Yeah, you definitely don't want to strain that and then end your career just because you want to go a little too quick. But
I know it. Yeah, it's I I wanted to go visit all the archery family out in Louisiana here in a couple weeks, and can't quite get them to release my restrictions yet. So
oh,
my tournament back will be Pipeston, West Virginia. I'm going to go visit the IBO Worlds. I'll be at the NASP Eastern Nationals, talking with all the kids there. That's always a fun event in May in Louisville. And then my first ASA back will be in London, Kentucky. Then I'll be preaching there. I'll be running my booth and hopefully be off restrictions to maybe be competing. If not, my first tournament back competing will be Metropolis, Illinois, the Superman shoot, which is kind of a cool one to come back. They got a big Superman statue right in their town. And since they put a steel plate on my chest afterwards, I kind of figured, being the Man of Steel now, that, you know, that might be a fitting shoot to come back to.
yeah, that would be.
Yeah. So, but yeah, archery is a lot of fun. 3D is kind of more or less been my passion, just because I love to hunt. I hunt all over the country when I can. Been elk hunting, bear hunting, pronghorn, whitetail. Obviously, it's kind of my passion, so I do a lot of that in different
Yeah.
states. But so 3D archery has always been something that's intrigued me, because it kind of niches that two together. It helps hone my skills throughout the year for what I love to do in the fall.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I was looking at, I shoot the targets, develop my skills. So I know if I can hit that spot. Now,
Yep.
then I'd like the 3Ds, because that gives me the chance to work on judging yardage. So I know how far it is. So I know where to put my pin. So now I
Yeah.
know how to where to put my pin. I know I can hit where I'm shooting at. And now all I got to do is worry about that, the nerves when the animal comes in.
Absolutely. That you can't practice, except for on the tournament range, especially when you get to those shoot downs and everything. There's a different type of nerve that you got to
Right.
deal with. But nothing quite gets my heart racing as much as a giant Pope and Young or a Boone and Crockett comes strolling across. That's on a different level. But
Yeah, the only thing close to that is when they pick this bionic deer out there, they put it out there in steel deer shape, except the vitals are cut out. Your
yeah,
lungs are harder cut out. So the only place you don't destroy an arrow is in the vitals. And
yeah,
it's amazing how some people is like, easy shot, and then clink, clink, or just pass up the shot because they don't want to take the chance of losing an arrow, but yet they'll shoot at an animal at that distance or further.
absolutely.
Like,
We had one tournament we were doing for a fun one a while back, where we had one of those. It was a bionic coyote one. So
oh,
small kill zone.
yeah.
And you had a challenge every time you hit it, you had to step back 10 yards, see how far you could go.
Oh,
And I think we stopped at 50, 60 yards, to see if anybody can make it all the way to that point. And a few people did, but a lot of people lost arrows that day.
yeah.
So
You say, well, I'll just take an old junky arrow. With old junky arrows, more likely going to miss than a good one.
yeah, exactly. I don't have any junky arrows. I kind of got to the point where if it's junk, it's throw it out.
Right.
So, but I'm also blessed with Black Eagles being a sponsor. So,
So a
it
little
kind of helped.
on arrows.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I know when I was shooting aluminum arrows, I'd buy a brand new dozen right for hunting season. And then I get them all fletched up and ready. And then I would shoot them, make sure the broadheads are flying good. And then I didn't shoot them in practice. After
exactly.
hunting season was over, to get the broadheads off, and I use those. And it's amazing. By the end of the year, before I buy a new dozen, how big the group is. You might be able to keep it in the 5 spot, on the
Mhm.
5 ring on there, but you can't keep it in that small X ring. You get a new dozen, it just tightens right up. Like, of course, they're aluminums. Every time you shoot an aluminum arrow, it weakens the spine, but
You know, and I'll tell you the reason I don't keep a junk arrow around anymore. It stems from years and years ago. I always used to have one in my quiver, and it was my critter arrow for when I was hunting. I
Oh
seen a
yeah.
cop, something like that. It was an arrow that I'd grab out. Well, I got in the stand early one morning, and I had 5 good arrows and 1 critter arrow in my quiver, and it's dark, and I'm popping an arrow out and getting on my string ready for the day, not thinking nothing of it. And here comes this beautiful buck at 25 yards. And I pull back and shoot, and my arrow zigzags around and flies over its back. And I said, what in the world happened there? And I looked, and it was that junk arrow that had a little bend to it.
Oh yeah.
And at that moment, I never had another one of those. And I made sure every arrow that was ever in my quiver, whether it be in the range or in the woods, was 100% true to where I wanted to hit.
Yeah, I know one time I was at a indoor 3D shoot, and I just had I'd grab them out randomly, and I was like, seemed like one of the arrows would always be off. So I was all right. So I started spinning them on the way, pull them out and spin them. I had one that was bent. I kept shooting the bent one, didn't know it was bent, so I moved to a different spot and don't use it no more. And by then you've already lost several points.
Yep.
At the tournament. So yeah, that's a nice thing I like about the carbons. The carbons nowadays are so much better than the first carbons.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, all the equipment today has come so far from my early days of competition to where we are now. It's night and day. And the funny thing is, I shot phenomenal scores back then. So back then, I feel I had to be a much better shot than what I do now, because those bows weren't as forgiving. Those arrows weren't as forgiving as what they are now. And I could remember I could keep about a nickel sized group at 70 yards with my equipment back then. And I don't know if it's age creeping up on me or not, but I have a tough time doing that now.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not as steady as I used to be, so I have a little more challenge when I'm going out trying to shoot and keeping a good tight group. And
when I'm on, I of course I have hunting bows and tournament bows, and when I was going elk hunting, I knew I was going out west, and there's possibility of long shots, and so my hunting bow was actually dialed into 155 yards, spot on hitting 10 rings. Not that I ever planned on shooting an elk at 155 yards, but I wanted to know if one stepped out in front of me, that hey, it was in my wheelhouse.
right.
And the tournament archery side, our max distance is 50 yards plus 3%. So if you're shooting IBO or ASA, you might get one out there 51 and a half yards, but that's about as far as you got to worry about shooting. And the shooting the unknown game like that's far enough,
Right.
because if you misjudge by 2-3 yards, that could make for a very bad day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't understand a lot too, I think, is, how big is your group at 20 yards? Are you grouping, a 4-inch group as well? All you can do at 20 yards? So what's your effective range to shoot? It might be 10 yards.
yeah,
Because if you're off by 5 yards, now you already have 600. Now you got 8 or 10. Now you got a bad hit. That's why it's important to keep those group tight and shooting the different ranges. I know
absolutely.
when I was shooting at the indoor range, we go back to 40 yards. Mine was at 20. You go back to 30. But if you went and stood back by where the door come in, where the elevator was, you could get out to 40. And
Okay.
I always start off with shooting at 20, and then I go back to 30, and then go back to 40. And if I move back up to 20, the next thing I know, I'm destroying arrows. So I couldn't shoot in single spots. I just always shoot the 5 spot, that way I don't have to worry about wrecking arrows because they get expensive.
Absolutely. I was telling a young man the other day, he got one of my old bows for tournament, and to give him some arrows to get him started and everything, and he was shooting really good, and he sent me a picture of Robin Hood one. I said, now it's time to start aiming at different spots.
Yeah.
It's cool to do, but it gets expensive after a while when you do that. So
Yeah, I've gotten several of them with aluminum arrows as well as carbon arrows. And I know I was shooting aluminum arrows. I had some at 20, and I even had one at 30.
that's awesome.
And then I've gotten multiple ones. I know when I worked at Cabela's, I worked there in the archery department for a while, and I got a couple of them there. They had one bow they come out with one year. I think Bowtech put it out. It was a Cabela's branded one, and
Also, the brand.
yeah, it could have been a diamond one. I forget which one it was now. But we set it up, and then I'm shooting it, and I shot one arrow, shot the next arrow, stuck two of them together. We set up for another guy, and he shot it 5 1-inch circles and hit 4 of the 5. Another guy shot it. Then they come back and says, "Oh, wait, we got to pull these off. We can't sell them. We're having trouble with them." And we looked at the guy and says, "Is it the text or what?" Because this one we shot it. 3 different people shot this bow and no problems. And I said,
Yeah.
2 more. Let's set those up. And said, no. So they recalled them, then come back out. I'm figuring it was probably, when you go to a place like Cabela's, Bass Pro, Dick's, Shields, all those places in there, do you have a person that knows what you're doing in archery?
Not normally, unfortunately. You got to go to your independent dealers a lot of time to
Right.
find a bow tech that knows how to tune a bow. Your pro shops, basically. You go to the big box stores, they can't even serve in a peep sight half the time or tie on a D loop.
Now, fortunately, when I was at Bass Pro, I had many years own loan shop for a while. One of the guys in there, he worked another shop. So, between the 3 or the 4 of us that was in there, we probably had close to 60, 80 years of experience working on bows.
That's awesome.
That was unusual.
Yeah, exactly.
I left there and went to Cabela's, and then I was teaching the guy that was in charge of the department what to do on a bow because he didn't know. And then one of the guys that worked with over at Bass Pro, he come over there, and so then we had there, and then I left, and then he eventually left, and I went at one time, and I talked to the guy, and he says, well, he'd shot a bow when a kid. He actually applied to get a different department. I said, we haven't opened an archery. He'd shot a bow before. And and they come, it's like, no, I just need you to unlock this cabinet. I want to see this release. They're like, no, I forgot more about archery than you'll probably ever know.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing when people that get frustrated when it comes to buying a bow or getting set up properly is they go to some of those stores that have zero knowledge and hire some professionals, but they don't. And so people are buying bows that are not set up for them. The draw length's way too long. They're not timed. They're getting told, oh, this works for it, and it's sad, but that's why I try and encourage people to buy the bows at the mom and pop shops, your pro shops. Most of the time you can find somebody with some knowledge at one of those. Unfortunately, there's a few of those that I've been to that people wanted to start a bow shop that probably should have went to school first.
Right.
I feel if you own an archery shop, you should know everything about tuning a bow that needs to be known, like with everything that you're selling. So if you're selling Matthews, Hoyt, Bowtech, it don't matter. You should know the ins and outs of every single one of those bows if you're going to be selling them.
Yeah. When I got my store, I spent a week down in PSE down in Tucson, Arizona, going to their dealer school, learning all stuff. Back then they had steel cables on your bows, like the Nova bow. I sold lots of those because they had 3 different draw links in them. There's 3 different ones. And I had to carry 2 in right and 1 in left and all the 3 different sizes. And that's why the last year I had the store, 40% of my bows are left-handed.
No kidding.
Why? Because I stocked them.
Yeah.
I didn't stock too many of the upper end ones, but I did on a couple of them. And I had one of my shooters was left-handed. So, if they wanted to try a left-handed bow, it's like, okay, them come in, let's, they can try your bow. And we had one come in, his bow for that year come in, guy was looking at one, left-handed, shot it and bought it. Well, I had to order another one for him. But that's what your shooters do,
Oh, absolutely. And in a lot of places, left-handed bows are tough to get in a lot of places. And I know a few people that are left-eye dominant, so they've taught themselves to shoot left-handed. So it's not necessarily just for a left-handed person. It's getting with their dominant eye. And a lot of people don't realize that have struggles getting into archery either. You really need to know what dominant eye you are before you start.
And I forget to explain that, I'm talking about left hand. I mean, left eye dominant shooter.
Yeah. Yep.
One of the interesting ones, I had a set of twins come in one time. So I'm checking them. one twin was right-handed, the other twin was left-handed. Well, the left-handed kid was right eye dominant, and the other one was the opposite way around. So,
Wow.
so your right hand is left eye dominant, your left hand is right eye dominant. So, they were completely mirrored on all those aspects like that. And it's amazing how many people that are left eye dominant don't even know it.
Exactly. That's why I try and get everybody before, if they've never shot a bow, to do that. There's some different tests where you can figure out what dominant eye you have, and once we establish that, then I'm like, all right, you might want to try a left-handed bow. Now, some people, it's awkward for them because they've done everything their whole life. And but if you never shot it, it doesn't seem as awkward, I guess, to a beginner. And I got a buddy of mine who's left eye dominant. He went to a left-handed bow from right-handed, but it was always so tough for him to find a good left-handed bow. Like shops don't carry them, and so he went back to a right-handed bow, but started shooting with a red dot sight where he could keep both eyes open. So that was kind of his, way of curing it,
Yeah.
But thankfully I'm right-handed and right eye dominant, and so it's a lot easier for me to get a hold of my bows each year.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I do when you're looking at it is, I'll have them look at an object off at a distance and then put their hand up and then look at it. Okay, you can see it. And then I'll put my hand over and cover it. You still see it? Yeah, you still see it? No. And then it's like, if you shoot the wrong eye, that's how far off you're going to be. And it can be off by feet.
Yeah.
Just at 20 yards, what happened to me is I'm right eye dominant. I shoot right-handed, and my right eye has been clear. My left eye is not quite as clear. And I see two images. I see double vision. I have prisms in my glasses to help with that. But I see two sets of pins. Always have. I have the right eye ones and nice, bright, clear pins. The other ones are kind of dim and weak. Well, when the right eye started fogging up, the left eye is my clear eye now. What does my mind pick up? Because it ignores the other ones. I shoot both eyes open. My mind ignores the dim set of pins. So what did it do? Out hunting one time, it ignored the right eye pins. It picked up the left eye pins. I put that pin right behind the shoulder where it's supposed to be. I hit it in the back hip. Hit an artery, so I still got it. And then it's like, what's going on? So I go down to the range, and when I practice, I close my left eye when I'm practicing because I'm focused on just, developing that skill. So I go back, nailed it, right on. Opened up both eyes. I missed. I was shooting at the right on the 5 spot. I missed the paper on the left.
Wow.
I was off by that much because I had the wrong eye picking up the pins.
Yeah.
And then I'm out hunting and I'm blinking my left eye, trying to force my mind to pick up the right set of pins. And then one thing I discovered, I always wear a baseball cap, and then, I have a hooded sweater all the time. And as I turn your head, the hood doesn't move. Your head moves inside the hood. So guess what? The hood blocked my left eye.
Yeah.
I still shoot both eyes open when I hunt, but yet my left eye gets blocked.
There you go. That works. Yeah. I got such a powerful difference in my right and left eye. I shoot with both eyes open. I've had a few archers saying, how do you do that? And I said, well, that's because I got 20/10 vision in my right eye. It's super strong, but I'm legally blind in my left eye. I got 2200 vision in there.
Oh.
And so I got the peripheral I can see out of it, which kind of helps out for my field of view.
Right.
But that's why it's never been an issue with me, because I'm automatically gonna focus right out of my right eye. It's where it's gonna be clear, and it's worked out pretty well for me. Yardage judging, it become a different challenge for me because of the difference in my two eyes. But I've learned to manage with that over the years. So.
Well, and you can get a pair of glasses to help with that. Just have strength in the left eye, and the right eye, just kind of leave it alone, just glass in there.
I did that for many years when I was younger, and then finally had an eye doctor that told me not wearing glasses was keeping my right eye stronger. So I kind of went that route and went back away from the glasses, just because that 20/10 vision is pretty nice to have.
Right.
So now if that ever changes, yeah, we'll have to figure that out. I'm sure in a few years I might be noticing some of that when I get closer to that senior class.
Yeah, your eyes kind of go on the wayside sometimes, and it's like you shooting, 150-yard shots. Like,
Yeah.
I can't see that far. I can't
Yeah.
see clear enough. So I'm not going to take a shot like that just because it's too hard for me to see. And, when I look at my pins, it's kind of weird. I don't know what it is, but, I got fiber optic pins. I got, like 4 of them or 5 of them. I forget now.
Mhm.
But when I'm looking at them, normally a fiber optic pin, you're going to have like a red dot or a green dot or yellow dot. I
Yep.
don't see a dot. It looks like there's a black hole. It looks like a donut, a red
Oh,
donut. So now they're weird looking pins anyway. And yeah, so yeah, I'm not shooting over about 40 yards anyway. Just
nothing
that's
wrong with
hard to shoot,
in hunting. Most of your shots are 40 or less.
Right.
Especially if you're hunting any type of woods, swamp area. Most time you're not getting a long shot. I mean, the longest I've ever harvested an animal, I shot one buck. It was at 70 yards. I knew I had no problem making the shot. My bow was dialed in for well beyond 100, and it's just one of those perfect opportunities. And I smoked him, and he went 20 yards and fell over. So most of the time, I like to get him in closer.
Right.
Now, go out west, that's a different game out there. Those guys are used to taking long shots. It's nothing for 90, 100-yard shots on pronghorn out there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I shot my pronghorn at 60 over a water hole. So I guess, that was kind of a closer shot on one than what most people get.
Yeah, they're kind of a tough animal to hunt because you really can't spot and stalk them because they're out in the open and they see you way before you see them.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun though. I did both. I hunted over a water hole. One day we went spot stalking, crawling up the side of mountains, hiding behind rocks, and every time I'd get on my knees to draw it on one, they'd kind of seem to catch me right before I could get the pin settled on them and take off. And it was a fun afternoon of trying. But yeah,
Right.
I ended up having to shoot mine over a water hole though.
Yeah. Well, whatever you got to do to make it work, right?
Yep.
I know sometimes stalking in can be a challenge. I was at this one place and on the farm, there's a little farm road there, and the buck was or a doe was bedded down right next to the road. And there's kind of, grasses along the road. So I took off my boots so it wouldn't make any noise. I started sneaking up. I got belly crawled right up. So I was 5 feet away from the deer. Then I realized I'm not going to be able to get up to draw my bow. It's not a crossbow, so I can't shoot it sideways. It's not a recurve or longbow, so I can't shoot it
Yeah.
laying down. And I'm like, okay, so I just kind of backed out, and but it was kind of fun going up there and getting that close to it. And
Oh, absolutely. Bear hunting, I've never tried anything besides hunting them over bait. But that's fun. It's a different type of rush. Uh, they come in so quiet. It's kind of like both bears I shot, I guess I was kind of dozing off. So I had my eyes kind of closed, been sitting out there all afternoon, and something just kind of told me to open my eyes, and then bam, I had a bear there 10 yards, never heard it coming in.
oh yeah,
Uh, and so that was my first bear experience. I shot that one, and then following year I went back up to Canada and harvested a 400-pound black bear. Kind of again, I just got done from a little nap, and I opened my eyes and I see this giant head come out of the bush, and I nudged my cameraman. I said, "Hit record," and I knew he was huge, and I was able to harvest that one too. That was the biggest bear out of 43 hunters in camp taken. So
oh that's good.
yeah, uh, I love everything outdoors, whether it's hunting, like I said, the tournament archery, just getting out into God's country. That's
Yeah,
why we have our ministry. It's called God's Country Outdoor Ministries. I share my faith with hunters and outdoorsmen and the archers. When I do the sunrise services at all the national archery tournaments, sharing God's creation that he made for us to enjoy, and just kind of always find my peace when I'm out there sitting in a deer stand watching the sun come up, and just it's hard to look at that and not find a happy place.
right.
And that's why archery has always been, that's my favorite time of year. It's my favorite season. In Michigan here, it's October 1st through November 14th. You got the fall colors, you got the crisp, cool mornings, everything's beautiful. Now you get to the end of November, you might have a foot of snow on the ground.
Mhm.
It's its own, you know, beauty in a way, but that's the time of year I'm kind of want to get next to the fire and warm up a little bit anymore.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little soft the older I get. So
Yeah, yeah, we have tons to do that. Nice thing with the snow on the ground, it's easier to track and you can see your footprints.
yeah, absolutely. So that was one of the things I remember growing up as a kid. Opening day of gun season, November 15th. Everybody always prayed for snow. Because that way if you shot a deer, you could got that nice blood trails a lot easier to follow and just
Oh yeah, and that snow, yeah, it's easier that
yeah,
way.
yeah. And so which we've had a lot of days mid-November with snow, and then we've last few years it's been kind of mild though. A couple of them we had rainstorms, which is kind of a difference. I don't care to hunt in the rain on a downpour, but if you get a good mist going on and just got that overcast, oof, that brings out those big boys.
Yeah, they feel a little more secure coming out.
Yep.
I know that reminds me of the time it was rainy out and my hunting buddy at the time was wanting to go and I really didn't want to go hunt in the rain because it's kind of pain to track them. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's like, okay, if I don't go, he's gonna sit in my tree stand and shoot a nice deer out of my tree stand. So I went. So guess what I did? I shot a deer out of my tree stand.
Go.
And then it was raining enough that there wasn't gonna be much blood trail. So I give some time and got down and I'm following the footprints and see a little bit of blood here and there. So I know which footprints to follow. And I basically follow the footprints to the deer.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine, kind of same scenario as one of those rain days, and he don't get a chance to hunt very often. I said, hey, let's go out. And so I took him out. I had a 2-man stand. I took him out. I said, I'll just run camera tonight. And one of the nicest bucks in the area came right out 30 yards and he smokes it. And we were hunting a big open bean field that it just fell over in the middle of. So we didn't have to worry about track. And it's kind of nice when you can see him go down like that.
Yeah.
But then it started downpouring and we had a half-mile drag afterwards. So
Oh,
yeah, it was one of those fun experiences about 11 o'clock at night by the time we got done. And
yeah,
we're
those are no fun in the rain, but you know what? Your reward is all that good eating.
absolutely. We between my son, myself, my wife, and I got 2 other children. But between the 3 of us, we harvested 8 deer last year. So
Oh,
we like to keep the freezers full or the canners. I can a lot of the venison.
oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, just it makes for quick, easy meals. Pop a top, warm it up, and you're good to go. So we try and can about 2 to 3 deer each year doing that. And then we like to make a lot of venison roast. Put it in the crock pot, let it slow cook all day. And
Some
just
potatoes, carrots, onions.
yep, little cream of mushroom soup with it, and you're good to go. So um, now my son Dalton last year he shot 3 deer with his bow.
Oh,
Uh, 12 years old, shot his 2 bucks and then shot a doe, all with his compound. And so he's becoming quite the hunter.
yeah.
And so I get to sit back, I think, here in a couple more years and just let the kids do it. I go out there and watch and coach them a little bit, and
You run
they
the camera and
yep, I'll gather the footage and get to enjoy it. So I get more enjoyment anymore. It seems like out of hunting, out of putting people on deer and seeing
yeah.
differences. I've been blessed. I've harvested a lot of deer, or killed a lot of deer over the years. I got a wall full of trophies. Um, and as cool as that is, nothing compares to watching one of my kids get their first buck or their big buck or a friend that's never shot a big buck to put him on one. I get more enjoyment out of that anymore. Last year I had a pastor friend of mine hunting with me.
Oh yeah.
And he never has shot a Pope and Young buck. And probably one of the biggest bucks that I would have ever harvested came out that night, and it was me and him in the stand together. I didn't, we both had our bows in case we had a chance to double,
Right.
but I didn't even grab the bow. I grabbed the rangefinder and a call to try and turn this buck to get him in. I said, get your bow and get ready. And he's standing there at 51 yards, absolute monster 10 point, 22-inch plus spread. And I couldn't get him in be closer than 51 yards. He was kind of committed to being on the path that he was on. And he goes, it's just a little too far out of my comfort zone, which I understand.
Right.
He used to take shots like that. I said, he's right in my wheelhouse right now, though. And, but I wanted to get him that buck so bad. I never raised my bow. And only thing we could do is watch it and let it walk off and hope for another day. So afterwards, I kind of told him, I said, I could have smoked that thing so easy. And he's like, yeah, I know you could have. He goes, I'm surprised you didn't grab your bow. I said, but I wanted you to have it. That had just been another big buck with the other ones on the wall, and it would have meant more to you than it would have me.
Right.
And that's kind of plan on spending my rest of my years kind of doing that. Yeah, I'm going to go after a couple myself here and there, because my family's already realized if they don't want to go out hunting one night, Dad's going. And there's times I've told them it's the perfect night. You need to go. Oh, can we take today off? Can we go another time? I'm kind of tired, or I want to do this today. I said, that's fine. And so I'll go out and I'll shoot a big buck normally.
Yeah.
And call mom saying, hey, have mom bring the trucker out. Daddy's tagged out. They're like, oh, that's the one I want to hunt this year. Like, I told you.
You can't kill it if you're not in the fields.
Yep, exactly. Did that to my daughter a couple of years ago. She had one buck we call it Dagger, beautiful 10 point. And October 25th has been my favorite day of hunting. Ever since 2012, I shot my biggest buck on that day. Still trying to outdo that buck. And so every year I've seen a big buck on that day. October 25th, mark your calendar, get in the woods. It's when the big bucks start moving. It's just been my experience, at least here in Michigan.
Yeah.
And so every year I've went out, every year I've either filmed or harvested a giant buck on that day. Now, 2 years ago, there was a particular buck my daughter was at called Dagger. And we had trail cam pictures of him, beautiful buck. She really wanted it. It was October 25th. I said, there's two things going on today. It's the day to be out, perfect weather. And she didn't want to go out that night. So I went out and shot him. And I got out the stand 10 minutes later. He pops out. I grunted him. He came in on a string. And that was the end of it. And the following year, had an opportunity to outdo my biggest on October 25th. And a tree limb glanced my arrow and unfortunately hit him in the back hip.
Oh, no.
And I did not get the artery. That was a heartbreaker on that one, because he was an absolute monster pushing 180-inch deer. And in Michigan, you don't see a lot of those. And he's still running around out there, but I'm still after him. I just, I got to get him. And then this year, this past season, October 25th, my wife finally listened to me and she went out hunting. I went to another property, though, that we have a lease on. And she saw my target buck walking up to my stand as she was sitting across the field. And she couldn't believe her eyes how big he was. And so the one time he walked up to my stand all season, I was hunting a different property. But hopefully this year I'll get another crack at him before he starts going downhill. He's 7.5 years old now, so he's kind of at that peak right now. He ain't gonna get any better.
No, they don't last too much after that.
No. But I'm excited. I'm fired up. I'm gonna go chase some turkeys here in a couple weeks. Even though I'm still healing up. I'm on a 10-pound weight restriction right now, and I can't shoot a bow right now, but I can lift a a sniper light mission crossbow up. And so I got to cheat a little bit this spring, but I feel it'll get the job done on some turkeys anyway.
Well, and I pretty much comes up every podcast almost, what is archery?
Yeah.
A stick with a string flaying another stick.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
a crossbow. That's a longbow. It's a compound. That's a recurve. Yep.
And it spends, unfortunately, it's controversial. Sorry, I can't talk. With so many people, like, oh, you shoot a crossbow, or oh, you shoot this, or you shoot that. That's not true archery. Well, it all is a form of archery. Crossbows have been around forever.
Oh yeah, during the medieval times, that was
medieval times. I'm all for somebody going with any legal form of hunting. For the traditionalist, if that's how you choose, go enjoy it.
Right.
And we should be bonding each other together and never tearing each other apart of what somebody chooses to hunt with. I've killed deer with compounds. I've killed deer with crossbows. I've killed deer with guns. I've killed, and so if it's in a season and I can get out and enjoy it, I've got to go do it.
Right.
Last year, I shot a giant with a crossbow just because I wasn't planning on hunting that day. I went out to a buddy's house, and I had a friend that was up from Georgia. He was interested in a new crossbow, so I wanted to show him one that just came out. So I brought it over there to kind of just show him. I said, hey, do you want to take it out and hunt with it tonight? He's up there in age, so that's all he can hunt with anymore. Right. Don't allow him to pull a bow back. And he goes, that's really nice. He goes, but I'll just use the one I got tonight. He goes, aren't you going to hunt? I said, well, I didn't bring my bow with me. I said, he goes, well, you got that crossbow right there. I said, well, I guess, yeah, I guess I could, but I wasn't really planning on it. So I said, yeah, I'll go out, I guess. And I had my hunting clothes in there because I was just going to sit with him and film.
Right. Yeah.
But instead I find myself spot stalking around the woods, looking for a spot to sit down and take a nap with a crossbow in my hand. At the time, my dad had just had open heart surgery, so I've been up at the hospital for 2 weeks. Kind of things were kind of touch and go for a little bit, and so I hadn't hunted a lot at that moment. And I left the hospital early enough just to visit with some friends, that afternoon. And so I went out there and I found a few different spots, and I kept sitting down. I said, well, none of these spots are going to work. This ain't comfortable. I can't take a good nap right here.
Thinking about a nap, not hunting.
Yeah. And so I finally found this big stump and had this pile of rocks next to it. And I said, I think I could lay against this, get me a good nap, and got a good view. And so I brush all the leaves off of it. And as I'm brushing the leaves off, I said, hey, it kind of sounds like a deer making a scrape. And I had a grunt call with me. So I'm brushing leaves off, brushing more leaves off. Next thing you know, here, coming right into me. Giant 7.5-year-old, 21-inch wide 8-point. Charging it 20 yards, stops broadside when I smoke them. I said, well, I wasn't planning on that tonight, but it worked.
Yeah, it's when you least expect it.
Exactly. Yeah. So just a blessing we had last fall. I said, but I did it with a crossbow, but that was cool. It was fun. And I hunted with my compound the rest of the year, and I shot a couple, I guess 3 does with it, have fun doing that too, but never seen another target buck to get. And Michigan is a 2-buck state, but it's been 10 years since I've shot in 2 bucks in one season because I'm pretty particular on the ones I harvest. I'm pretty fortunate to get 1 Pope and Young normally every year. 2 has always been a goal of mine. Had the opportunity this past season to do so. November 14th, last day of bow season. I've always wanted to kill a buck on that day. And I had my opportunity with 3 different bucks. One at the beginning of the season, I said I had a shot, but that was prior to being down to 1 tag.
Yeah.
He come in. I was playing with cell cameras this year, so it's kind of a neat thing. My cell camera goes off, so I'm looking at my phone. knowing what buck's getting ready to come into me. I said, man, that's tempting. And I had my bow in my hand, and he came into 40 yards broadside. And I just couldn't get myself to pull the trigger on him. I looked at him, I said, I think one more year, and then I'll harvest. Yes, it is just kind of, I've already shot one buck this year, and I was still after my particular target buck I was hoping to see again. Yeah. And it would have been perfect because he was literally standing right in front of my other camera, and I had it on video mode, so I could have got the pass through of the arrow on the other side. It would have been a pretty cool shot, but I let him walk, and then my neighbor shot him opening day of gun season the next day. So choices I make, sometimes have consequences, but
yeah. Sometimes that's the way it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he sends me a picture the next day. I heard him shoot, and I said, did you get a good one? He goes, that's the biggest one I've seen all year. And he sends me a picture of it. I said, oh man, congratulations. I said, that's awesome. And you're welcome. Welcome. I said, yeah, I let him walk yesterday. Kind of joked with him. And but he's kind of been after the same wide 8-point I've been after. I nicknamed him Heart Attack because if you see him, you're going to have a heart attack. Basically, he's about 26 inches wide, tall tine, 300-pound deer, lots of mass. Something Outdoor magazines, dream up. And I've been watching him. I had at 3.5 years old, had an encounter with him, and I was going to harvest him that year, and it didn't work out because he was a stud then. And then he blew up, and I'm glad I didn't harvest him because he's turned into something pretty special. So
yeah, it's something you have to think too, what area you're in. If you're in an area where, come rifle season, if it's brown, they shoot it, so then you can't let the big ones walk because chances are they won't make it that season. And
yeah,
you kind of know, what the mentality of the hunters in your area are, and who else is hunting. And even private land, you've got some areas that you might be hunting one property, but the property next door, they don't care what they shoot. They just want, if it's a deer, they shoot it for the meat, and they don't care if it's buck or fawn or what.
And that's a chance I take every year when I let something walk, and I let 20-30 bucks walk each year, and some people go, you're absolutely crazy. Well, I do it for a couple different reasons. Number one, I like to see them grow up. Number two, I like to hunt. I said, if I shoot the first bucks I see, I'm done the first week of season. Well, then I'm going to be, and so that, and I got a lot of, like I said, wife, kids, and everybody else I try and get on deer. And so I'm the picky one in the family. I got the rest of them, they're happy to get a deer,
Right.
So they see a decent 2.5-year-old 8-point. He's in trouble,
Right.
And I'm fine with that. I've never judged anybody for what buck they shoot, whether it be a little spike or forkhorn or a 170-inch 10-point. It doesn't matter as long as they're happy with it. I just, I'm blessed in an area that has some pretty good potential, and even the neighbors that don't care per se, they don't shoot a lot of deer. They shoot maybe one for meat or something like that. So yeah, go ahead, shoot whatever you want. 90% of the deer are going to make it though, and so there's a better chance of seeing something a little bit bigger next year. So
yeah, well, especially if you're seeing that many bucks come by, then there's a chance that you're going to get a good high percentage of them are going to survive. And
yeah, so I'm blessed with an area that has a backwards buck to doe ratio. We got about a 4-to-1 bucks over does.
Oh,
it's insane.
wow.
And everyone's like, well, what's wrong with that? And I said, the rut. When you don't have a lot of does, my bucks all leave. They're looking. So I don't shoot does behind my house for that reason, just because I want to keep the few that we have around it,
right,
keeps them there. Then I got other properties where it's the opposite, and you go out there and see 40-50 does in a night. Those are the properties that's where I go do my meat hunting on, and we'll
right.
harvest 6-8 does off there each year. And just trying to help balance the herd as best as I can,
Yeah, they do the same thing in your fishing worlds, when you have your bass limits, some will have a 21-inch limit and then they'll lower it down to 15. And
Yep.
other bass fishers, they start complaining. It's like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's, well, you have too big a fish, you don't have enough food. And then so you have to reduce them down and then you increase the food. It's a balancing act. And the same thing
Absolutely.
you're doing, where you have a high number of bucks, shoot only butts, high number of does, shoot the does, and
Yep.
get that balance out there, and it's going to make the herd even better.
Absolutely. It's all about a healthy conservation of the herd. And I feel we do our part pretty good each year with it. And so far everything's worked, and hopefully it continues to go that way.
Well, and then too, when you get a buck that has kind of deformity or something in there, a weird growth pattern or something, unless you want to encourage that, that's the one you take out, get that gene pool out of the mix, and that way it makes everything a little better, and get rid of the small skinny ones and the ones that are not the best shape, and
leave the healthier, good genetic bucks to breed. Like,
right.
We had one doe that we kept alive for 7 years that we know of. She had triplets every year.
Oh,
and every year it seems like she always had like 3 button bucks. We'd watch those grow up, and their first set of antlers would be like a nice 8-point, at a year and a half old. And then at 2.5, they were really nice 8-point, that most people couldn't let go. And it's very important for doe genetics to be out there too.
Right.
Because you can take a great buck with a mediocre doe and get a decent buck. Or you can take a mediocre buck with a great doe and get a great buck. But if you get that combination of a great buck and a great doe, then you're getting these super freaks out there.
Yeah.
So some does you don't want to shoot. There's ones to harvest, and there's ones to probably be a good idea to let them go.
Yeah, you get to know your herd pretty well and be able to identify that's the one you want to keep. And
yeah, fortunately, I've been hunting this property for over 30 years, so I've gotten to know how things work on this particular piece, and it's helped out. If somebody new came in, didn't know, it definitely probably changed things up a little bit, for sure.
That's nice. You've been on hunt it for so long, and that way the property, and you know how to take care of it, and the landowner definitely likes what you're doing.
Yeah. It's funny. I'll bring somebody over to hunt with me, and I'll say, go sit in this stand, and I'd show them. And they're like, you put me on an oak tree in the middle of 80 acres right here with nothing around it. Why would I sit just here? And I said, trust me. And, I didn't put them in the swamp. I didn't put them in the woods. I didn't put them in, in this pinch point. I put them, and they said, why do you got to stand there? I said, because 90% of the time there's a heavy run trail, and those deer just walk right by it. And it's just years of experience knowing that, and so it's kind of neat learning your herds and learning the pros and cons of what to do and what don't do. And it's made funning a lot hunter over the years, for sure.
Yeah, it's a little different. I got one property that we hunt that I think I've seen 3 or 4 deer during the daytime. Last year's season, I caught one on a trail camera during the day. Everything else is middle of the night, or there's one spot they come in just before shooting time.
Yeah.
And you can't, where they go, because you can't track them once they come past that camera. If you don't catch it on one of the other cameras, where they're going. And so I'm thinking they're going away. They come in and because they're coming from one side going past the camera, I'm thinking they might be going over the hill or something, but I'm not catching them on any cameras on the other side.
Yep.
When they're coming through at 10 o'clock at night to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you can't hunt them.
I know it. It's that time of year where most deer are running nocturnal until you get that hot doe to change everything up. And those are the days you need to be out there. Because you got that 1 to 2 weeks where it's really special. and all your nocturnal bucks start coming out in the daylights. And of course, I work a lot of scrapes that time of year, try and get a stand set up over there because those bucks are going to be hitting them. They're going to be chasing. And so, but yeah, I'm always looking for my early season spots, my rut spots, and my late season spots where I'm going to hunt. Because late season, you're gonna tend to go to those food sources because that's where they're going to be hitting. So
Yeah, and this one's happen to be just mostly open fields, except there's tree lines along the boundaries is pretty much there, and it's transition point at night. And
yeah,
I know last year we went in and we seen two of them come in, and my son got one right away, and I wasn't even at my tree stand yet, and come running over the top of the hill. I was like, I'm not even ready. I'm just getting my stuff off the four-wheeler, getting ready to walk down to the place I'm going to go sit down and hunt. And here comes this deer running across. And when we pulled in, we seen two of them walking in the field, and got in there, and sure enough, he was able to just go up and take one right away.
there you go.
He killed that one, and then I didn't see any more that day. That's the only one I seen. And
those days happen.
yeah,
What part of the country you normally hunt?
eastern part of Nebraska.
Eastern Nebraska. Okay. Never hunted Nebraska. That's one of the states I haven't checked off my list yet. But Missouri was one I've whitetail hunted a lot. That's a special place. Northern Missouri, kind of get those Iowa carryover bucks,
Yeah.
and they grow them pretty big over there. Kentucky's been a favorite spot to go hunting over the years. I took my son to Kentucky in October of this past season, and wanted him to get his first out of state buck. So I said, well, I'm not even going to hunt until he, shoots one. And I bought my tag and got him his. And, he shot 3 deer last year, 2 bucks and a doe. But going to Kentucky, we were hunting some pretty big bucks. And buck fever kind of got the best of him. And
Yeah.
he unfortunately missed 3 different bucks with his bow in Kentucky. So I didn't hunt, but I enjoyed watching him have those opportunities and get all rattled up on some of the biggest bucks he's ever seen in his life. So it was kind of a neat time.
Yeah, that's always fun when you can see them, get excited, and then
Yeah.
the next time you go, you'd be a little more relaxed because he's already went through the, trials of seeing those great big monsters come in.
Absolutely. I'm gonna plug my phone in here. Battery was getting a little weak.
Yeah, they have a tendency to do that.
Yeah. Give me just 2 seconds. Apparently it came out of the wall too.
Oh,
There we go. I don't move around quite as fast as I'm used to, but I'm getting there.
yeah.
I just got to watch how well or how much I bend certain ways. So,
Oh, yeah. Imagine that. That doesn't feel good if you bend wrong.
yeah, I'm so blessed to be able to bounce back as quick as I have already, less than 2 weeks after surgery. A lot of people are still in the hospital at this point, but I just, God bless me with an amazing strength through it all. After 2 days, I was pain free.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, the only pain I really had was that first night in ICU, which is to be expected.
Right.
And then the day they had to pull all the chest tubes out of me, that didn't feel good. So that had to be down for a couple hours. But after that, I was up walking around all the time, feeling really good, and being in shape. That's one thing about outdoor archery I love too. Indoor is a lot of shooting, and that gets you in a good shape muscle wise for your chest and everything. But outdoors, we are hiking, walking to each target, and some of the terrains they have us on is absolutely insane. Hiking up the side of this mountain, and shooting, pulling your arrows, going back to there. That's a workout in itself.
Yeah, it is.
And I guess that's why I like outdoors so much. Is just it's not only your shooting skills and your judging skills, but it's the physical aspect of what it puts you through as well. Um, that's what's getting me geared up for hunting season, is doing all that. One thing to shoot a bow at a spot at 20, 40 yards, and become a good shot. But how are you doing as you're hiking out to your stand, climbing up in it, and or spot stalking across the country? I'm starting to do more and more of that. Grounding and pounding, it's opened up um opportunities to harvest deer that if I'd just sat in a stand right there, it probably wouldn't have had a chance to. And so the last few years, uh, this past season, I guess the last 3 years, shot deer off the ground, and some pretty big bucks that if I wouldn't have been on the ground, I would have never had them come in range of my stand. So just a different aspect. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, if you're in an area where you can do that, that's always kind of fun. I've done a little bit of that as at a stand that was way up on another hill over there, and so I said I'm just going to go in slow, see if I can see something on the way. And I
Yep.
got there, and I was the other end of the field, and I was like, nothing. So I just started walking. Up pops a deer, runs off. Like, oh man. So I said, okay, they're gone. So I take on more. Another one pops up and runs off. And I'm like, so sometimes like, well, just don't worry about it. Just either just walk in and throw them out, or stalk the whole way.
So I've stalked it. I've learned different things over the years. Of course, the more you hunt, the more people you hunt around, you get different tricks and tips and everything from everybody. And I still go back. Jesse Moorhead, is one of the best archers and hunters I know. I mean, he's won 12 world championships, I believe. He's killed so many animals across the country and across the world. He shot the largest whitetail in 2001 with a bow, and called that one the General, 243-inch, 23 point, just monster. He shot out in Kansas, and so I've always kind of went to him for a lot of hunting tips, different
Yeah.
ideas. And I remember the one time, and I just thought he was crazy, but I talked about, man, it's getting to my one stand. It's so loud. There's so many sticks and twigs and everything. I said, I'm going to have to go in an extra hour early in the morning, just to sneak to my stand and try and get into it quietly. And he goes, why are you trying to get into it quietly? I said, well, I'm trying not to bump anything. He goes, if I were you, I would run to that stand, hit every stick and branch you could on the way there, and get there as quick as possible. I started thinking for a minute. I said, what? He goes, trust me. He goes, what is stalking through quietly, trying to not make a noise? He goes, a predator. He goes, does a deer sound like that going through the woods? I said, no, not really. Deer make quite a bit of commotion going through, so do squirrels and everything else. Just try it. So I did. I said, why not? What do I got to lose? I was hunting in northern Missouri. So I grabbed my bow that morning and grabbed all my stuff, and I booked it right through that woods. Lucky I didn't fall on my face. I was jumping over some stuff and made all kinds of racket, climbed up into my stand, raised my stuff. Within 2 minutes, I had a herd of deer come running in right behind me, gathered all underneath my stand. It's still pitch black. I could just see them underneath the moonlight. And they all followed me in, just kind of milling around there. I'm like, wow, that's kind of crazy. So I guess I got different theories of that. Now, I used to think you had to be so quiet. Now I'm like, well, if I'm in a hurry to get to my stand, I'm just going to run out to it and get to my stand. So
Yeah. Well, you don't sound like a predator or sound like a human, that cadence in there. And when you listen to squirrels in the field, they'll scurry around a little bit and stop, move around and stop. And there was one time I was out, it's right at prime time in the morning for the deer to come through, and I heard this awful racket in these reeds that was about 100 yards away from me, making all kinds of racket. And I'm thinking, who's the inconsiderate hunter out here stomping through the reeds at perfect time. No, I seen this big buck come walking through, 100 yards away, but
Yeah.
it was a deer come walking through all the reeds, making all this racket, and
Yeah. And that's, I guess the more you experience, the outdoors like that, the more things you learn. Um, my kids, they've been blessed with shooting deer at young ages. Dalton was 8 years old when he got his first. My daughter Averill was 8 years old. Jacob would have been. I messed that one up this year on him. It was his first year deer hunting, and at the time I was struggling with my heart failing. I knew I had to have surgery. Something wasn't quite going right, and but I wanted to take him out anyway. So I took him out to a blind. I got this property that I could park my truck, put a pop-up blind right in front of it, and have deer come 20 yards away. They just they ignored my truck and everything. I'm like, I wasn't in real good shape at the time, so I'm like, I could do that. Be an easy hunt for him. So that's what we did. And I had the 350 Legend for him, the gun that didn't kick, I wanted him to shoot his first deer. And so I was so geared up of getting him in position, getting the shooting stick in position and everything. Put the clip in. For some reason, you just had a little bit of a brain fog moment and forgot to rack a shell in.
oh,
And so later on, as the night goes on, here comes about 7, 8 deer coming out. And this big old doe is standing there. I said, "Are you ready?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah." Of course, he's all excited. He's shaking. And he's got the crosshairs on her. I said, "All right, easy, squeeze the trigger." And he did, made the perfect squeeze and just took his time. And then heard click. And he goes, "What happened?" I said, "Well, oh, that's my bad on that. Got to rack a shell." And so I tried to rack one in, but it was too late. She took off, and that was the last chance we had to hunt last season. So he should have had his first deer at 8 years old too, but my bad, and I'm gonna have to make it up to him this year.
but he got out there. He was able to take the shot and just forgot to load it.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, just I love taking the kids out. It's and the wife got her a nice big doe this year. She's been wanting to get one of the big bucks I keep harvesting, but she at least shot a big doe, and provided some meat. So that was a good thing. And I said last year was kind of crazy. I didn't hunt as much as I normally do, just because different things going on with the family. Unfortunately, heart issues was a big thing of last year
Yeah.
that carried this year, and mine I've known about forever, I guess. In 2018, I had a total heart failure, where they had to put in a pacemaker. I lost all the electrical system in my heart. And then they told me then that my valve was bad, but not at the point of needing replaced. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You might go 4 to 8 years, maybe 20. We just got to keep an eye on it. Well, I got the 5-year warranty, I guess, because this year after your test results are like, "How you been feeling lately?" I said, "I get fatigued a little bit, but I've always pushed through. I was still competing. I was still, pushing myself to the limit." I said, "Well, you've been in heart failure since July." So I was actually shooting the world championships while my heart was failing, and still able to continue to push through on that. And I was getting ready to go down to Foley, Alabama for the first, ASA outdoor of the year. And I said, "Can we wait for surgery until after tournament season?" And I was actually just going to take this hunting season off. And he said, "Well, we can, but you're playing with fire if you do that." And he goes, "But it's your call." I said, "Let's schedule it for the middle of August." I said, "Let me finish my season, make some money. That way I can at least, have a little bit carrying me through the year." And he agreed, as long as I didn't have my blood pressure go up or any chest pains. Well, I started praying about, was that the right decision to push this off? My blood pressure went up through the roof, and I started having daily chest pains, and my heart failure numbers actually doubled in 2 weeks' time. So I had to re-meet with the surgeon and said, "Yeah, you were right. I was wrong. Sometimes it's hard for us men to admit that. And I guess we got to operate now. And he goes, probably a good call, because you wouldn't have made it till August if you had waited. He goes, the way things were looking. So praise the Lord, I'm still here. We got it done, and I went in strong enough now to bounce through this really quick. Unfortunately, as far as the tournament side of me this year, I should be able to hit about 5 national tournaments, which is half of what I try and do each year, but it's better than none at all. And I don't know what it's going to do for my shooting wise. So I got a little bit of an excuse for the first couple tournaments if I'm a little off my game.
Haven't been on practice for a few months.
Yeah. I am going to start, since I can walk and do all that. I can't lift anything. I can't push and pull, but they said I can walk. So I can't drive right now. I got to have people cart me around. So I got my daughter just got her learner's permit.
Oh,
so she's been driving a little bit, helping out, but and then my wife, and I'm gonna have them take me to local archery ranges where I can at least look at different scenarios, start judging targets. Might not be able to shoot them, but I can go spend the days looking at them and get my walking in. So that's kind of the plan over the next couple months, is to at least make sure my numbers are good for when I come back.
Right.
And hopefully my shooting don't leave me.
It'll come back. Sometimes they come back better, because now any bad habits you had, you can break them much easier because you haven't been doing them. And it's like, okay, here's the process, everything going through there. And that's when you start back. It's like, okay, have somebody watch you.
Yeah.
Just have have somebody watch you, even if you video it and send it to somebody and look at it and give you, critiques right away before you get into some of the bad habits you may have had.
Yeah. So, we're going to come back stronger and better than ever. And if I win a world championship at the end of the season, I said they'll make a movie out of that one. So, but, I go against the best of the best. I shoot open pro. So I'm going against Levi Morgan. I'm going against Dan McCarthy. I'm going against Jack Walls. I'm going against, everybody that's got multi-world titles. And that, over the past 5 years since I've been back, I've had my name on the leaderboard along with them all. And there's days that my name's above theirs, but at the end of the weekend, they seem to have theirs on top. They're hard to beat.
A little more, because they may have a little bit of an off day, but their off day is better than most people's good days.
Exactly. And that's, I swear Levi's got the built-in rangefinder in his eyes. He's gifted, and he spent a lot of his younger years working toward that, where he didn't have to work at it anymore. That's one of the things that once you develop that skill, you just got to sharpen it a little bit, but you don't have to work that hard at it.
That's the thing. Just last year is the first time I got a rangefinder. Everything's just estimating it, and I haven't even really used it too much.
Yeah.
Last year when I ended up going out rifle, I did because I wanted to set up for a little bit longer shot. My rifle set on dead on at 200 yards. So, I needed to get far enough away that they'd have a chance to come out of that spot that they were coming out at too early in the morning and getting somewhere. And I wanted to have a, chance for that long shot. And
absolutely.
So I used it but it's well, these rangefinders they're kind of nice.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody trying to learn, it's like, okay, you're going to guess the yardage, and then you're going to make the shot, and then we'll range it and see what it was.
Exactly. That's the best way to do it. A lot of people will guess the yardage, then range it, then take the shot. That doesn't help you for judging.
No.
Because then you're going based on, sometimes it discourages you on judging. We have something built in us naturally where if you have all the confidence in the world that it's that number, then shoot it for that number and believe in it. And subconsciously, we could be a yard or two off and still hit our mark.
Right.
Everybody always thinks, oh man, you had to have judged that right to the tee or within a half a yard. That's not always the case. It's believing in your number, or it's having a really good game plan where if you're struggling between a couple numbers and you're like, well, it might be a couple yards hot on that one, or that target I tend to judge a little hot. So then say, all right, I might call an upper 12 on that just to be on the safe side. If I, still aim where I'm going to aim, but call an upper 12 just in case it does rise. And so that's one of the things in 3D archery is you learn what game plan works best for you and you stick with it. My days where I'm judging really good, I'm within a yard. I'm happy with that. I got some targets that'll still throw me, and I might be 3 to 5 yards off and be like, "Ooh, what did I see there?" But the best way to work on it is to go out there and believe it, judge it, and shoot it. And if you hit your mark, don't range it afterwards. Just believe your number. It's when you miss your mark, then you're like, how far off was I? That's all right to do. But if you hit your mark, don't even bother clicking the rangefinder on it, because archery is 90% mental.
Right.
And you got wrong. So
yeah, and if you depend on the electronics, is say you're out there, you're walking through, you see this deer come out, and you have to make a decision. Okay, how far is this a shooter? Yes. How far is it? You judge the yardage, and then you drop. You can be judging yardage, like you're going through your drop process. You have time to use a rangefinder.
Yeah. Only time I normally use a rangefinder when I get out into a new area I've never hunted. I'll have a tendency to pull mine out and I'll range different trees to get a layout of it.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time I ain't got time to range that deer when they come in. They're coming in hot, and you got to make a decision, shooter or not. And if it is,
right,
oh, hold on, let me pull my rangefinder out. Okay, they don't always happen. They're gone. Shooting multi-pins helps out. You can kind of pin gap a little bit, and that can kind of help you get an idea what range that deer is in. I mean, you put 3 pins and they're all on the lungs. Guess what? One of them's going to hit there. So,
right.
Hey, and I've done that before. It's like such a quick spurt of the moment. Big buck coming running in. I pull back. All 3 are on the vitals. I'm letting her eat.
Right. It doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah. Now I hunt with a single pin a lot if I want to get longer range. This year I'm hunting with the new HHA Rise, which is a 2-pin on a rover dial system. So it could be 20 and say 34 yards. So I know on that gap. And then if it's something I got to take a further shot on, I adjust the sight to it. And when I am if I do decide to take a longer shot on an animal, I want to be able to dial right to it.
Right.
But like I said, I try and get them in close. But it is neat to know that, that deer is 80 yards out there and he's feeding and has no clue I'm there. I can take that it's not windy. He's totally relaxed. And if I choose to, I can take it,
Right.
But you got to look at each scenario. People will tear you apart for long shots on animals. And I kind of look at it this way. It's all in a comfort zone and a skill level. Because some people, if you can't hold a group the size of a pie plate at 30 yards, you really don't need to be taking super long shots.
No.
But if I can hold a group, because my average is the size of a baseball or less at 100 yards. So why not?
Right.
And that's because I spend my days shooting. I mean, when I can, and I have the best equipment that you can ask for. I mean, everything is top of the line. Of course, I'm very blessed with sponsors on that.
That helps.
Yeah. I mean, every bow I shoot's a $3,000+ setup. So I got the best of the best. I made sure it's 100% tuned and it's ready to go at those. So it's different for everybody. Some people's comfort zone is going to be that 40 and in, 30 and in, and that's totally fine. And if you've never shot beyond 30, 40 yards, you shouldn't be shooting a deer beyond 30 or 40 yards.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's kind of what I was going to say. So what's your longest one that you can shoot at and hold, a 3-inch smaller group? I'm like, well, that's your max range.
yeah, exactly. And I can consistently do that at 100 yards. 155, I was holding softball size when I was sighting in for that. Not all of them were consistent. They were really close. Sometimes it's spread out to more of a pie plate, but and then there's a lot of variables when you're going that long a distance. You got a lot of wind. You might not know, you might not have a breeze right here, but 100 yards down there could be a breeze kicking in through
Right.
somewhere. So it's got to be the proper scenario for those. I had a show called God's Country for a few years, and it was a hunting show, faith based, and one of the hunts I shared on there was moose up in Alberta, Canada.
Oh yeah.
And Jesse Moorhead and his cameraman were the ones doing the hunting. And Jesse took his bow, shot a big, beautiful bull moose at 117 yards right through the heart. It went 40 yards and piled up. And then he hands his bow to the cameraman, grabs the camera as there was another bull out in the field at 96 yards. So the cameraman, using Jesse's bow, shot the other bull at 96 yards that piled up on film. And they were working that scenario. That way they only had to have one bow in the field. And if they ever had a chance to double, they knew they could do it with the same bow. And they were practicing at 150 yards.
That's good when you can be that close in draw length and draw weight. You can shoot and
Yeah,
have everything set up so one person can shoot, or two people
exactly.
shoot the same bow.
It doesn't always work like that, but that was a scenario where it worked for both of them, and that was one of the coolest hunts we ever aired. So
yeah, that is pretty cool when one shoots one and you switch, from camera for the bow and shoot another one.
Yep. And so that's on my bucket list. A moose and caribou. I've yet to hunt. Got a lot of friends that's done it, and so hopefully in the next couple of years I can go pursue that myself. I just don't know. Obviously, Alaskan Yukon moose is probably the top choice if I could ever afford to get there. I gotta win a couple more tournaments though.
Yeah. I know it. Many years ago, in the 90s, I had a chance to go on a moose hunting in Ontario with a friend of mine. And
Yeah.
it was rifle. I wanted to do archery, but that wasn't season. He always did rifle. He didn't do archery. So I went up there and I got me a moose, and I had a cow tag in the area I was in. And the day we finally get one after going around, and there was one was on top of one hill. The road was, this moose was down the hill and halfway up the next hill up.
Nice.
And of course I shoot it standing up.
Yeah.
Spent 3 years in high school on the rifle team, so standing up's no big deal. I don't need a steady stick. My arm is positioned for a steady stick. That's just the way I shoot rifles. I've done it for decades. And I borrowed a guy's .6 with a 4-power scope on it. I had the old Springfield 1903, just iron sights. I had that along with me too, just in case. But so I got this and I pull up and I look at this moose in my scope, and it's only about a third of the scope. Like, okay, this has got to be a ways out there with a 4-power scope. Mooses are big.
Yeah.
And so I figured, okay, I put it where I thought it was, and shot missed. It just stood there because I'm probably 250 yards away or better. And so I said, okay, I must be shooting low. So I put it on the spine, crossers right on the spine, right above the heart lungs, and shot. And this time it kind of jumped, walked a little bit. It's like, man, I must be really off on my judging my yards. I'm a bow hunter. I'm used to 20, 30, 40 yards. I can judge those, but the 200, 300 yards, I wasn't doing it. So I raised up even higher. So I was about the height of the head. Shot, it fell over dead.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, it must have been a lot longer. I get up there, I find no bullet hole. I couldn't find a bullet hole in it anywhere. I found one little bitty drop of blood about, maybe an eighth of an inch diameter spot. That was it. There was no,
Wow.
just fell over. And I was like, what is going on? So next day we field dressed it, no bullet hole in there. I couldn't find one. So next day when I'm taking all the hide off, I finally found the bullet hole right at the base of the skull.
Really?
I
Wow.
was way left. And then I happened to think when I was sighting it in, I was sighting in, 100 yards and I was off slightly to the left.
Ugh.
Well,
At
not
this,
thinking,
uh,
off by, an eighth of an inch at 20 some yards at 300 yards is off by, feet. And
yeah.
oh, that's what I was doing. I was okay on my distance. It just, I didn't sight scope in right.
Oh, that happens sometimes. We all
Yeah.
get humbled.
Yeah. Now
But
I've got a little bit better at doing that on my new one. I got a Browning X-Bolt Knot 6, and being a reloader, I've reloaded and I was able to do that for my Knot 6, the 180 grain Hornady.
oh, nice.
And I put, going to indoor range, I got a 16 power scope on it. And I can crank it in, 16 power, at 20, 25 or 26 yards where the range is. I can put the crosshairs in the middle of the hole I just shot. So I got it sighted in. I put 3 shots in the same hole. You can see little bitty ridges around it. And then
Nice.
worked up a load for my 270, and you couldn't tell there's more than one shot in it. It was just the exact same hole.
That's
And so
awesome.
now I know I'm going to be on that one. And I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing that is at 100 yards, I'm high. At 200, I'm on, and at 300, I'm low about 3 inches. So I'm about 2 inches high. So I'm anywhere out to 300 yards, I put them where I want to go. And like on the podcast we talked about earlier, the last one to come out, the projectile is going to be rising and then dropping. So it's going to
Yep.
pass your pin sight twice, once on the way up and once on the way down.
Same thing with archery.
Yeah.
A lot of people, ASA started doing it last year a little bit. IBO, I think, did on a tournament or two, where they would throw us in this target at 2 to 7 yards.
Oh yeah.
And for people that's never shot anything like that, they don't know what to do. They're like, well, how do you set your sights at 2 yards? And for me, I know at 2 yards, I got to set my sight at like 70
Right.
to mark it too.
I was actually at a tournament, and I had a program that would calculate all that stuff for you. And I says, okay,
Yep.
5 yards, shoot 70 yards.
Yeah.
And it's like, why shoot at 70? Well, then when you think about, we talked about there, is the arrows at your mouth, your sights and your pins are at your eye.
Yeah.
So now, I did that. It was on a raised platform besides, so it was about 5 yards out and was up, I don't know, dozen steps. So it was up probably 10 feet. So I'm leaning against the rail, bending over. Finally got that pin there and didn't shoot. And now that I was leaning so much, I had to have help to get back up. I was leaning so far over. But I
Yep.
put a 70-yard pin where I wanted it and shot. Nailed it.
You definitely got to make sure you have your cut charts ready for those situations.
Right.
I remember I was working with my kids prior to this tournament, making sure they were ready from 2 yards all the way to 10 and knowing what they had to do. And I neglected on making sure my new bow setup that I had it on what I had to do, because they weren't doing this stuff to us at that time yet. And then the next thing I throw a 7-yarder in there. I'm like, I said 7 yards. So then in my head, I'm trying to remember, I didn't have my cut chart with me. Like, what did I know 2 yards is this, 3 yards is this, but what is 7? And so I had to take a guess, and you can get humbled really quick on a 7-yard target.
Right.
When you shoot underneath that 12 ring and you shoot an 8 at 7 yards, that's a sick feeling.
Right.
And
so close.
Yeah.
The weird part is that people say, well, I'll just sight down the arrow. You ever shot that way? Well, no. So how do you know how you're going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. So I made sure after that to always have my cut chart with me. That's one of the things I won't leave without, because it might be one tournament a year. It might be 4 or 5 tournaments a year. They'll do something like that, to you. Shooting in the pro division, my average is 35 to probably 43 yards for about half the targets. And then you got your bombs out there, 47 to 51 yards for a lot of them. And then to see one under 35 is pretty rare, but you might see one or two a tournament. So you kind of get used to that range that you're used to shooting. But lately they've been trying to mess with people because everybody's started getting used to that range that we were, so you start judging, that's another 39 yarder, it's another 42 yarder, and you start getting kind of used to that. And then, you can tell when it's the bombs, it's going to be the smallest target in the darkest hole, and they're going to stick it out there at 51 yards 90% of the time.
Right.
To me, it's like the Wolverine. If I see a Wolverine out there at an ASA shoot, I'm automatically just start dialing my sight down toward that 50 mark. Then I'll take a look at it and see how close it is. But where they mess me up is when they don't put it out at that bomb, because I'm like, man, now I don't know. Like, I got to look at that at a whole different angle.
It used to be out at the 50, put it out at 37 or 38. And
exactly. They do a really good job setting these courses, though. They make us work for it. There ain't a pro out there that didn't work hard all weekend to shoot the score they did. Just some of them, there's a little bit of fortune that comes on your side. Sometimes you're just in, sometimes you're just out.
Right.
And I've had some of those weekends where I just was missing that 12 ring by 1/8 of an inch. I was just underneath, just needed to add a half a yard. Wasn't quite hitting them. Then other weekends, you're just barely getting them. And those are the ones you want.
Yeah, better just barely get them than just miss, right?
Absolutely. The payday's a lot better for sure.
Right. Well, when you're on that, using it to generate some income, that's a different level. And a lot of the listeners here aren't even near that. They're just worried about, not losing their arrows, to shoot. And what would you say to them that is like, well, I can't afford all that, $2,000-3,000 equipment. What would I, how can I compete, and what should I be doing?
Well, that's where you get in a class that fits you. So they got novice classes out there. Bow novice is one. It's a known distance. An ASA, IBO has a non-known distance bow hunter. They're a 30-yard class where your average shot's going to be 22 to 25. You're in your comfort zone, and as you start developing your skills, we're like, man, that class seems pretty easy. Well, then you can start going the following year and stepping up to something maybe a little bit further distance. And don't think you need the best of the best. Get something that you can afford to get you out there shooting. And then there's always times to upgrade. As time goes on, something that you're going to take more serious, then you can start, hey, I'm going to put a better rest on. I'm going to run a blade rest, a Hamsky Trinity maybe, or hey, I can afford a little bit better bow, and or maybe I'm going to get me a dozen new arrows that all match and have the same fletchings.
Yeah.
But and there's a lot of people that'll help out. I've given a lot of stuff away over the years, giving people some phenomenal deals that couldn't afford to get it. And the archer community is a big family. Somebody's getting in, there's people that'll help you get going too.
Yeah, if you're serious about it and you want to learn, there's always somebody that's going to help you out with something.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people like, that, especially the people that are serious competitive archers that have way more stuff than we need. And somebody that's trying to get going. Most of those times you can find somebody that will give you a good deal on a sight or a rest or something to help you improve. So.
Well, and somebody new just starting out, get one of the ready to shoot packages.
Yeah,
absolutely. It has the rest, the sight, the quiver. You just got to buy arrows. I know when I had my store, my ready to shoot package included arrows and tips and a release. So you had to buy nothing except the bow case if you wanted a bow case.
Yeah.
Of which I carried some soft ones, but I didn't carry hard ones because Walmart sold them for $5 more than I could wholesale buy them for. Yeah. And you pay shipping. So I just didn't carry hard cases because why compete? I'd carry, higher end ones that we could get, or the soft cases.
Yep.
And start with one of those packages, and it's like, okay, you're going to get a cheap release. If the package I had, it was, one of the real low end releases. And then if you like the sport, start upgrading. Now
Exactly.
it's like, okay, get a good release, get a good wrist strap or whatever kind that you want to shoot. I wouldn't recommend starting with a handheld, like I see you shooting back there.
Yeah.
As a beginner, it's not a beginner's release.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to make sure you don't pull that trigger, because there's really, just drawing back is going to fire it. So
Yeah.
be careful. I like put my finger behind the trigger when I draw on a wrist strap one.
Exactly. There is a couple out there though. If somebody does want to get into a back tension release or a thumb, there's one from True Ball called the Sweet Spot that has a safety on it. So if somebody says, "Well, everybody else is shooting that back tension, I want to try," well, this one has a safety on where you can draw it back, then you take the safety off, then you start working in your shot process. But if you got to let down, you can click that safety back on and draw it down too for the beginner to help them get going in that direction. But yeah, the wrist strap releases are fine. The thumb releases. Somebody that's never shot archery before, there's no a $3,000 bow ain't gonna do them any good until learn the fundamentals of shooting a bow. And so get them something light poundage. So many people think, oh, my buddy shoots 70 pounds, I gotta try to, and they're struggling to get it back. They're struggling with everything. Don't do that. You want to be able to pull it back with ease. You want to be able to work into it. You want to start off blind bale shooting, working on your shot process. Get up there at 5 yards. Don't try and go way back at 30 yards or out back. Get up there at 5 yards. Hit the target. That's one of the best things to do for spot shooters that a lot of beginning archers I'll teach is I'll get them as they're shooting their bow, working on their fundamentals, working on their form. Shoot a 5 spot or a 3 spot at 5 yards. And if you can do a full round of 30 arrows without missing, guess what? The next day we'll bump you back to 6 yards.
Right. And then work your way back.
Yeah. And we'll work them back. And as long as they're still hitting, we'll continue to work them back a yard a day. Not big jumps, but we'll do a yard a day. But the moment they miss, then we'll bring it back forward. Because we want to build repetition with them. We want to build proper form with them and all the proper techniques. And then by the time they get done doing that and they work back to 20 yards, they're shooting 330x rounds.
Right.
And they don't have the bad habits that a lot of people have. One of the things, if you develop a bad habit, for every bad shot you take, it takes about 50 shots, good shots, to get your mind to erase that bad shot. I said,
we always like to think about the bad shots, not the good ones.
Exactly. Even if my weekend doesn't go how I think I should score, but if I know, hey, I went out there each day, made 20 good shots each day, 40 good arrows for the weekend, and I made the perfect shot every time, that's all that matters. The score will come if you're doing that. But if I went out there and I only made 35 perfect shots and I made 5 shots where I creeped or I pulled too hard or I got out of my stance or I didn't let down and I had a little dip bang accident, that'll ruin you.
Right.
Don't allow yourself to take those bad shots. Learn to let down is what I tell a lot of people. Because the moment you fire that arrow, that's going to do something to you mentally. If your feet weren't right, if your shoulders weren't right, if everything just felt off, don't fire the shot.
Right. Yeah. When I was first learning back tension release, this is, once you get back the full draw, you start your aim, you start your motion. It should go off in 3 to 5 seconds. That bow should go up. It doesn't, let down because something's wrong.
Yeah.
And go through it again. And if it doesn't go off, something is wrong.
Yeah.
You're not doing something right. So it goes off, and it should go off within that 3 to 5 seconds. Once you start pulling through the shot.
Yep.
And just work with it. And
you got to stretch that rubber band. It's that constant push and pull, like you're stretching the rubber band out.
Yep.
And have that explosion come in. It should surprise you when it goes off, and a surprise shot's always the best shot.
Right.
And you have that good follow through with it. Yeah. But the main thing for beginning archers is get out and enjoy it and have fun Don't worry about your score. That'll come. Worry about trying to make the best shot you can. And as long as you're out there having fun, that's all that matters. It's one of the few sports out there where anybody can become a professional if they want to.
Right.
Not everybody can be a football player in the pros or a professional baseball player or anything like that. That's very limited, but archery is one of those things that with the proper training and listening and work ethic, you can become a pro archer pretty easy.
Yeah, pretty much if you're coachable, willing to put in the work, you can achieve whatever level you want to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a bunch of pro classes to kind of fit everybody anymore. They got known pro, senior pro, open pro. I mean, there's a hunter pro and an IBO or with the pins. And so to kind of fit different people's skill level in those too. So, but stick with the amateur classes because the entry fees are a lot cheaper as long as you can and allow yourself to get bumped up. A lot of people just, they want to go, jump right up into those classes, which you can, but it's better if you get forced up. That means you made too much money that year in the amateur. So you got to go shoot a higher class.
Oh yeah.
And it feels good when you get forced out of a class that way versus just jumping up and getting in a class that you might not be ready for.
Well, and then too, sometimes I find if you shoot with the little better skill level, it kind of brings your skill level up.
Well, iron does sharpen iron.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of truth to that. So,
well, like they like to say in the financial world, your income is average the 5 people you hang around with.
Yes.
So equating that to archery, if you hang around people that are constantly, in the middle of the pack, you're going to be in the middle of the pack. If you hang around those that are towards the upper scores, then your scores are going to come up.
Yep.
So, because you're going to learn what are they doing. You're going to see how they do it, what they do. They're doing it right. If you watch somebody do it wrong, and that's one of the things I started the Archer Talk 101 Facebook group for is to help archers develop their skills. And what we want to do is allow them to place to ask questions.
Yes.
I've had several people, it's like upload their video because I'll be in other groups and they'll say, well, how's my form? Yeah, well, looks like crap, but I don't say that,
Yeah.
But I get comments like, well, practice more. Well, practice what? What are you doing wrong? They're wanting help. So I say, hey, I'm in this group, upload your video and we'll take a look at it and give you pointers.
Absolutely.
And I've taken guys, with, groups, 6-8 inches, and down to 3 hours touching.
Yeah.
I've done that routinely, just by videos. When I first started, video was a VCR.
Yeah. Oh
It
yeah.
was the only way you could video anything is on a VCR. And that was, now you got to have the TV and play it back and all that. And so you didn't really see it. But, so when I first started teaching, I had to watch them shoot. In 95, when I'm becoming an instructor, you're watching them shoot and critiquing them live, and they got to shoot again, and pick all these little things. Now with the videos, our phones, this camera is better than most digital cameras, professional cameras.
Absolutely.
And, the quality on them is just so good now that, now you can record it from different angles. And it's like, okay, well, here's what you're doing. You need to do this and do this. And, like you was talking about with your rubber band, one of my techniques to, if my form goes away, is I have a string that fit on my thumb and it's so I hook the release onto it. And when I shoot, that string should go straight off my hand. If it hangs up on my thumb, my form is off.
Yeah.
And because to do that is when you're, I have mine out straight. A lot of people have them tucked over, so they're kind of a open stance. Well, what happens when you do that is you're putting pressure on the back of your hand back. So when it releases, your hand automatically goes out. And being many years of martial arts training, I want to go straight to the target. If you break a board and you go to an angle, what happens? You hurt your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
So break a board, you go straight through it. Focus on the destination, not the target. The board would be like your pins, and you focus beyond it, which would be your target. You go through it, yeah, my little sting on your hand, but it doesn't hurt your hand. That same
Yeah,
sword at an angle is going to hurt your hand.
absolutely.
Same with archery. So, with my martial arts training as well as archery training, I kind of merge them together. So I want that hand to go straight to target. When you shoot, that hand should be pointing, that finger should be pointing right at your target. If it's not, you're directing the force differently. And now you can't go through and do it consistently because you're pulling off to the side.
Yep.
And I have a little bend in my arm, so it allows me to go straight. You see somebody completely locked out, and you can't hear it, but you can see, when the arm's a little bent, you can see my shoulder raises up when I straighten that arm out. And that's why a lot of people have shoulder injury. I actually had a physical therapist on one of the podcasts, probably a year ago. We talked about shoulder injuries and what to do for them. And that's you see a lot of old archers have that shoulder injury because they've been locking that arm out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean you can't always do that. I had a guy when I had my store come in, and he had MS, and he couldn't put the bend because his heart just shake like crazy. So we locked it out. So we had to modify his form.
Yep.
To accommodate a physical challenge. And, the way I teach it is the best for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach it to you and then modify it to fit you. That's what a good instructor is going to do. Is you're not going to be all this one focus. I learned that a lot in martial arts teaching, the same technique. One person gets it, the other one doesn't. You tell it a little different way, and all of a sudden it works. It's the same technique, just taught slightly different. And there's a lot of stuff in there. I do my toes lined up, put an arrow on the tip of my toes. It should point to my target because I'm straight off the target and straight away. And the same thing, like you're saying, it should be an expansion both ways. Straight line from the elbow through the hand, through the arrow to the tip. It should all be in a straight line. If it's back, your drawing's too long. If it's short, it's too short. So you need to get that kind of, so you're straight. So as you pull back, it goes straight through.
And that's the good thing about a proper bow setup. Like I said, some people that get in archery and they just pick up a bow, make sure you get to a good pro shop or somebody with some good knowledge to set you up. Doesn't have to be the most expensive bow out there, but you're going to want it set up to your draw length and to your comfort zone on poundage. That's going to be key for anybody starting out. Because if you're going way too long a draw and you're stretched out and everything else, you're never going to be at your peak performance when you're shooting something not set up for you.
Well, and just going to a pro shop doesn't mean you're going to get good advice.
Yeah, exactly. You need
my first compound bow, I went to the pro shop.
Yep.
And I was telling him I'm looking to get it, compound bow, get my first one, because I shot my brother's whitetail too, and I wanted one of my own now.
Yep. And
he said, here's one, trial back. How's that feel? Okay. I'm 29 and a half out straw length. That one was 32.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better. It's 32. So when that one ended up breaking, that's a story all in itself. I got another bow and I thought, well, I need the 32-inch draw length. Come to find out, I had another bow that after I got that one had another bow was an old PSE, and go down with my, when I was going through learning the back tension release and also, learning to be an instructor as well. And he says, okay, you're too long. You need 29 and a half draw length. And this is a Friday night. And then Saturday night was the next one. Sunday was the third day. So Saturday, I had to go make my bow 29 and a half inches, or there's no reason to come back because you can't teach back tension when you're too far stretched out.
Exactly.
And so I went through this, changing strings and everything else, because you can change your string length and cable lengths, and you can shorten the draw length and, move modules or whatever. And I got it down to that and was going through there. And like you said, blind bell shooting, what they had us do when we're shooting is we were close enough to reach up, grab our arrow and pull out the backstop. That's how close it was. There's like 20 of us on the line shooting with our eyes closed, learning the technique until we finally figured out what we're doing and open our eyes. And then our form just went to crap again. So then you close your eyes until you finally feel it and open your eyes. And then finally you can do with your eyes open. And, when I'm teaching, one of the things I'll do is, like the surprise release, I'll get them out there. Okay, we've already got the bow set up, right? Everything. So now we're starting to teach them. I says, okay, finger off the trigger. I'm going to show you what a good release feels like. Your only job is to aim. I'm going to pull the trigger. So they pull back. and draw back and aim and aim. Is it ready? Okay, aim, 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 and I'll pull that trigger. 9 times out of 10, they hit exactly where they want it.
Yeah.
Because all they did was aim. And that's what people don't understand. Your job is to start energy in the bow, and that's it.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's your job. Once you start the energy, your job is done.
Yeah. That's, that's a lot of ways to, it's a great sport for people to love, getting them set up properly, people with proper knowledge around it. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, that give some bad knowledge that,
Right.
so, and not every pro shop's created equal as far as that goes. Cause
Right.
there's good and bad and all that, but, we're in a day of technology now where it's pretty easy to Google Levi Morgan or Nathan Brooks or one of the pro archers and get some tips and find out, hey, what's the best? There's a lot of forums out there. What's the best pro shop in my area to go get a beginning setup? And a lot of people give some good information on that. It's a pretty good community of people that like to help each other. I mean, even in the pro archery circuit, if I'm having an off day, the beautiful part about shooting as a professional or amateur, most of the time, if you're having an off day, the people you're shooting with, your peers, are trying to help you figure out what's going on. They don't want to beat you because you're having an off day. They want to beat you at your best.
Right.
And they don't want to just see you fail. And there's been so many times like, man, if I heard something going on in my bow or something was shooting a little left and what's going on, everybody in the group would be overlooking my bow to try and find it out.
Right.
That's an awesome community. You ain't going to find in any other professional sport out there, somebody willing to help you win. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of the common thing among everybody I talk to is like, if you have a problem, ask somebody and they'll help you out. Like I always say, the only dumb question is one you haven't asked yet.
Absolutely, that's a fact.
Because if you have a question to ask it, it's not dumb.
Yeah,
Keep asking the same question 50 times in a week. Yeah, there might be something else going on.
There's a time where you got to start remembering it for sure.
Right. There might be something going on. There might be something else we need to look at too, is why you keep asking the same question. But
Absolutely. Well, Roy, it's been awesome. Any other questions you have for me?
oh no, it's like I just looked at it, it's like we've been talking for a couple hours now. So
Well, that's cool. It's been a lot of fun.
yeah, that's what's so fun about these talking archers all over the world. And it's getting real obvious that it's no matter where you go,
Yeah,
if you're an archer, you're automatically fan. If you've got a bow in your hand, you're a friend already. It may not
absolutely.
speak the same language, but at least we're shooting the same. We're in that world. And now with the Google translates and on your phones, we can still communicate back and forth.
Absolutely.
Even though we may not speak the same language, but we do speak the same language as big archery.
Yeah. And it's a sport that we all love and excited to, fellowship with other archers,
Right.
I'm blessed to shoot with people all over the world at different tournaments. And so, and we're always learning. Just
Right.
because you hit the skill level of a pro and you're competing in that class and you're winning a few tournaments, you never stop learning.
No, there's something new every day, and I learned something new, just talking to you guys. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, or
Yeah,
I have to try that, or sometimes just me explaining what I'm doing is like, oh, I'm saying to do this, but I don't do this. When you video yourself, shooting, so it's like, that ain't what I tell people to do.
yeah,
It's hard to critique yourself. And I know there's a lot of, because I'll create some videos sometimes, for my YouTube channel, different stuff on that, and going out shooting. And sometimes I'll use that as like, okay, what's wrong with this? And it's like, okay, everybody try to guess. And it's like, okay, here's what's wrong, whether I did it
yeah,
on purpose or not. Sometimes I didn't do it on purpose, and it's like, okay, what's wrong? Because it's like I realize what's wrong, but I want to see if anybody else knows, and then we can get this conversation going. And that's That's why I like the archery group, and there's people all over the world in that
Yep,
group. So,
absolutely.
and my listeners that are listening to the podcast or watching the video on YouTube, um, join that group. It's Archer Talk 101 Facebook group. There's a lot of people in there, and it's growing all over the world. We got people in the group that I have to Google map them to figure out what country they're from.
That's cool. Very
So
cool.
they're all over the world, and there's I don't even know all the countries in there because I can't keep track of it. There's over 700 people in the group, so
No,
it's growing. I'm still trying to build it up, but
yep. That,
a
just like,
community of archers that just help each other out.
absolutely. And that's what we're here for. So, and I've really enjoyed talking about hunting and shooting and everything with you. And if you ever want to do it again, I'm happy to. So,
Oh yeah, I'm always open for people that want to come on, and if our listeners are watching, hey, you want to come in and talk about archery, you're more than welcome.
yep,
The requirement to be on the podcast is you either have to want to shoot archery or are shooting archery.
yeah, there you go.
So I'd like to get somebody that's thinking about starting, so if you know
Yeah,
somebody that's just starting out, when I want to get started, let's get you on. You don't have to know anything, like are professional and Olympic archers, hey, let's get somebody that's new starting out, or even kids,
that
what
way
do
they
you like about it?
can that some of us learned the hard way along the way, when we weren't doing things properly. And but it's good that people that want to get into it go to the right places for their information. So,
Right. And we can walk people through, all that is, I actually had one of the podcasts, one of the first ones, like, what do you need to know before you even go to the archery store? And one of the things is, okay, what's your dominant eye? Roughly what's your draw length, so you know that. And then here's some of the other things that you're going to need to know. When you get to the store, they should be asking you, okay, why do you want to start archery? The reason I ask that is, okay, did you just watch the Hunger Games? You want a longbow, you want a recurve, you want a compound, you watch somebody in Olympic sports and you want to do Olympic archery. I need to know where to direct you. So I need to know that. I need to also know what your dominant eye is. I know what's in a right or left-handed bow. And
yep,
then, if I know what you want to do, if you just want to fling arrows at a target in your backyard, hey, let's get you something to do that. You don't need to spend a lot. Or it's like, hey,
yeah,
I really like to do bow fishing. So then I'll go
yeah,
look at a bow fishing setup.
yep,
So what do you want to know? And when you get to the store, if they don't ask you those type of questions, either find something else that does or go somewhere else, because
exactly.
they don't know what to do. They don't know how to help you. They just want to sell you stuff. And the guys that go in that are working on 100% commission. Well, as a store owner, I'm working 100% commission because I don't get paid, an
Yeah,
hourly rate. I get paid on the profits, the business
exactly.
makes. And, I'd have a new person come in and I direct them to, back then, it was the Nova bow, which is the
Yeah,
line bow that I set up. You could buy that anywhere, but the way I had it set up, nobody could price compare, because I had the True Fire, the inexpensive, at that time, was like a $20 release included with the bow, a half a dozen arrows with tips, fletched in whatever colors you wanted, because they're all custom fletched, because I started no fletched arrows.
yep,
And here's the only thing you need is shooting instruction. Oh, that included with the bow. So I'd teach you how to shoot, and this is a $350 bow back then, all set up, ready to go. And you don't need anything. My thought
exactly.
was, okay, starting out, if you don't like the sport, are you going to have a $1,000 bow in a closet, or a $350 bow in the closet?
Exactly.
I want
And
that cheap one in the closet, not the expensive one.
absolutely. That $1,000 bow is for when you say, man, I really love this. Now I want to upgrade my equipment, but get to shooting and build that love and passion for the sport. And then you start realizing, well, what's the difference between this $350 bow and this $1,000 bow? Once you've shot enough and learned that skill of what it takes to shoot, then you'll start realizing the differences. Oh, this one is smoother. This one has no hand shock, there's no
Right.
vibration from it. This one shoots faster, I can carry a better group for a longer distance, but a beginning archer isn't going to realize any of that because they're still
No.
learning.
But it's like with
So,
stabilizers, you've got the cheap, hunk of aluminum, and then you have the big high dollar ones. And, we're looking at them, some of the bows used to come with a stabilizer and a sling, because I
mhm,
make sure you had the one on there, because the sling is important, so you don't have to grab your bow.
yep,
And I'd put the cheap one on there and have them shoot it, pull it off, put the expensive one on there and shoot it. Feeling difference? No, buy the cheap one. I
exactly.
made more money off the expensive one, but that wasn't what I was doing. I only sold them what they needed, not what I wanted them to have. Because what I would shoot wasn't that, because my bows were running, back then, $600 to $800 just for the plain bow itself. And
Absolutely.
it,
And that,
and now the newer ones, my newest one, I was able to get really priced, but it was a $900 bow. No sight, no rest, no nothing, just the plain bow.
yeah. And, and they add up quick. That's for sure.
They do, yes.
So,
Yeah, now with the price of arrows, you might be for a good set of arrows, because I only shoot good ones. I shoot, the Comp Pros in aluminum, which is a 1000 straightness.
yeah.
I don't have any around that aren't that, because you can take and shoot a 6,000th or a 3,000th arrow at a group, and you might keep them in the white, or shoot a 1000th and keep them in the X.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
the only different is the arrows, and I've proved that many times.
Yep.
Buddy of mine was shooting, the lower end ones, and I said, "Here, shoot mine." It's like, then his group was much tighter.
That's it's all about the setup that you learn eventually, and the equipment to get, and so it's always fun to upgrade. Just do it over time. No
Yeah.
need to go spend $3,000 on a setup if you ain't got about.
Yeah.
But well, awesome, Roy. It's been a pleasure. I think I'm gonna go get me some food here now.
Yeah.
And but
Yeah, it's about that time. It's been real fun talking with you, and I'm sure we'll do this again. Thanks for being on the show.
yep, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. My name is Roy Canterbury, and you host today on Archery Talk 101.